Jason finally gets his iconic hockey mask in this movie, but why here? What's going on, everybody, and welcome to my review of Friday the 13th Part 3, also known as Friday the 13th Part 3D. The third movie in this franchise was released in 3D in 1982. It was directed by Steve Miner, the same person that directed Friday the 13th Part 2. It's the only time in this franchise where two movies are directed by the same person. Friday the 13th Part 3D tells a story of a couple of camp counselors getting into a house in Crystal Lake, and Jason Voorhees once again murders them. Does that sound familiar? Well, it's the same plot of the first two movies. Friday the 13th Part 3D is known for presenting the iconic hockey mask of Jason Voorhees. This is the one where he gets the mask finally, and I have to admit that I don't like that he gets it in this movie. Why in this one? He could have had a mask in Part 2. The truth is that I really don't like this movie at all. That's actually what I think of most of these films, honestly. But this one is just so repetitive, it's basically a clone of the first two movies. It's kind of weird to me that 1982 and 1983 were kind of the 3D years for movies. You had so many movies released in 3D in these years, like Jaws 3D or Amityville 3D, and one thing all these movies have in common is terrible 3D. Did you see the shark breaking window scene in Jaws 3D? Well, I did, and it's horrible, and I will defend Jaws 3 forever. I love that movie, but I will never defend that. And much like with Jaws 3, this movie has some pretty horrible special effects, and the 3D effects are really the worst parts of this movie. The 3D stuff needed a lot of light on set, so this movie is just too bright to be scary for me. It's not like other movies that I'm actually scared. I mean, not many actually scared me, but there are a few. And this one is just so boring, and when it actually gets to the climax, it's really not even that good in my own opinion. But before we get to the good, the bad, and the ugly of Friday the 13th Part 3, this movie tells a story of Jason crawling out of his home from the second movie to kill some new counselors that are staying in his home field. To be honest, that quick synopsis sounded way better than the movie turned out to be. But starting off with the positives regarding Friday the 13th Part 3, and the main one for me is Richard Brooker as Jason. I always loved his version of Jason in this movie. He's one of the best Jasons in this entire franchise in my opinion, and he is just perfect for this movie. I love his kills. How he executes these kills, I just really enjoy what he brings to the character, so it's still for all these movies fault one of the best aspects of it, and I would say he is in the top 3 in my ranking of the Jasons. I also absolutely love the kills in this one, pretty much all of them save for two of them that I'm going to talk about soon. I really love Andy's kill, where he walks on his hands and Jason just comes and splits him in half and you see what happened to him afterwards. I love that kill. It's easily in my top 15 in this franchise when you talk about the kills, which is a high bar because Jason's got some sweet ones. I also really like the subplot of Shelly. I believe his name was Shelly, but I really enjoy the subplot of him annoying the bike riders. I really like the supermarket scene where one of the girls in the gang took Shelly's wallet and she's making Vera, which is one of the camp counselors that went with Shelly. She basically makes her ask nicely, and it's hilarious. That scene always gets a laugh out of me. It's one of those scenes that you just rewatch the movie for because it's so hilarious. I love that scene, but Shelly drives on their bikes and it's so hilarious, and yes, that could have been very goofy, but to me it was pretty funny. I really enjoy the third act with Chris and Jason running and fighting, and it's cool seeing people stand up to Jason, and I mean she throws books at him, and she ties him in a rope. I love seeing people stand up to Jason. It's quite uncommon in this series. But that part was the first part that was actually moving, and it was nice. But of course, have to talk about the thing that this movie's known for, and of course, it gave us the iconic Jason Voorhees hockey mask, and well, I don't really like this design really. All of Jason's hockey mask, and it's one of my least favorites when it comes to the shape and the look in general. I have to give this movie an insane amount of credit because it did give us the iconic image that all of us know. I always appreciated that about this movie. Don't get me wrong though, I do think it is a massive improvement over the sackhead look that Jason had in Part 2. I did like that look in the second movie and was fitting for the specific film, but this is miles better in quality and when you talk about how cool it looked, and I get why a lot of people didn't like that look in the second movie, but I have to agree that it looks trash compared to this mask. When you talk about the character, I do think the majority of them are really bad characters, but I do really like this final girl. She's the person that lived where they are staying years for the movie, and I understand why you might not like her. Maybe it's because she's just kind of written to be the final girl and it was just a big coincidence. I get it, but I enjoy her character and the acting was decent. And now moving on to the negatives, and this one has quite a few flaws. Although I love this version of Jason, it doesn't make any sense how he has no hair in this one, and I get why they did it. It was to make him look cooler with the hockey mask, but this movie's supposed to be happening right after part to the night after the second movie and he just lost his hair. What was going on with that? The acting in this movie for the most part is pretty atrocious. From the interviews I saw, some of the actors said the filmmakers didn't care about their acting performances, they were just trying to capture that 3D effect, and man does it show. The acting is so bad even for a movie like this. I do love most of these kills, but there are a couple that I really don't like. I don't enjoy Rick's death. The fake head looked unbelievably bad. You could actually see the strings pulling the eye out and it just looked god-awful. I also hate the Shelley's dead kill. Not because of the rough acting in that scene. Well, actually yes, because of the rough acting. What was that? I don't know who shot that, because the acting that Rachel Howard gave in that scene was god-awful. The quick electric explosion is also stupid and bad. There are a lot of bad stuff in this movie, okay. I hate the fact that it's a clone of the first two movies. It could not be a part of this franchise and it would still make sense except for the hockey mask. It's the same thing as the first two movies. They just copied and pasted it with a worse script, worse acting and worse quality and 3D. Let's talk about that for a second. The 3D stuff in this movie is rough. It might have been cool for people in 1982, but I watched it without 3D glasses and it looked rough. There are so many goofy shots to look at when you don't watch it in 3D and I really hate that. The movie is boring as heck to go through, not because nothing happens, well kind of, but not all that. It's because of that barn. So if you didn't watch this movie, spoiler alert, 90% of it takes place on a barn. Who wrote this movie, honestly? I also absolutely hate how they rip off the original movie's ending with Chris going with a boat, which makes no sense whatsoever. But she goes on a boat ride in the Crystal Lake, which looks completely different than the first movie. But then Jason's mother, Pamela Voorhees, as a zombie attacks her. That is so stupid and I hate it. It's so repetitive and bad, and it's so much worse than it was in the original. Now, although I do like this character of Chris, I hate the thing with Jason attacking her in the woods and becoming the reason she left the camp. It's so goofy and so out of character for Jason that I hate it. Almost every character in this movie completely sucks. The only one that I kind of like is Shelley. The other ones suck. No one has a personality and they're so boring, and it's a huge step down from the fun cast of characters that we got in the second movie. So overall, this is a chapter that I enjoy, that I like, but is very flawed and is a step down from one of the best sequels in this franchise, that was Friday the 13th Part 2. I consider this third chapter to be a guilty pleasure movie. It's bad, but you can have fun with it. If you're a fan of this franchise, you need to check this out for completion purposes, but if you're not a fan of this franchise, I would recommend for you to just skip it altogether, but it depends on if you're a fan of this franchise or this genre or subgenre. I'm going to give this movie a 6.3 out of 10. So what do you guys think of Friday the 13th Part 3D? Are you a fan of this movie? Are you not a fan of it? Comment all your thoughts down below. I'd love to read them. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers before May, so please subscribe so we can reach that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.